Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Hey everybody, Dean Castronovo. Just wanted to say thank you so much for listening. And you are listening to Jay Scott and the Hook Rock. Crank it, people!
Hey everybody, good evening to you. Hope you're having a great day. Looking forward to a great week here. Summer is almost upon us. We're at the end of spring, but you wouldn't know it because the weather is hot and steamy and humid. At least here in Chicago it is. And rock shows are being announced. I'm going to see Nielsen Trust, which is Rick Nielsen's band with his sons Dax and Miles, and Nick Perry's opening up for him. So I'm stoked about that coming this Friday. Really interested in seeing them. I got tickets for Joyous Wolf coming up here in a couple weeks. They're touring at a small club about 45 minutes from me. So I am excited to finally get back into the swing of it. Once again, as I always say, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter. We are part of the Pantheon Podcast Network. You can find them and on all the other old episodes of The Hook Rocks on pantheonpodcast.com. It's on Twitter as well and on Facebook. Subscribe to us wherever you do podcasts so you get the early release of every episode dropped before we do it on social media. You can find all old episodes wherever you podcast, Google, Amazon, Spotify, Apple, and write us a review. Let us know what you think. We're always looking forward to your thoughts and your feedback on every interview and every discussion that we do have. We do always offer an escape for you, talking music commentary, things that affect rock music. We have great interviews with legacy artists and new bands, and we have one today. I'm really excited for this interview. It's from a band from Georgia. The band is the CEO, and the guest today is Mack Mullins. What's going on, man? How are you?
Jay, brother, how you doing, man? I'm telling you, we're really excited to be here with you. So, obviously it's an exciting time for us, after a crazy year and the album basically sitting on the shelf during the pandemic. So as we get close to that June 25th drop date, we get more and more excited and glad to be talking to folks like yourself.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I did read in your bio that I got that this album was ready to go last year, but the pandemic kind of put a pause on that.
Yeah, us and a lot of other people, as you can imagine. So, it just didn't make, obviously we can't support it or couldn't last year. And, being a new act, that's obviously crucial. So we shelved it, or the label shelved it for a year. And now we feel like, timing is good. I heard at the top of your introduction there that obviously you got some shows that you're going to go see. And so that's great. And, Sevendust, those guys are getting back on the road. And as soon as they're done, we should too. So looking forward to it.
Well, we got lots to get into, but we always start the same way every time we have a first-time guest on the Hook Rocks. And that is the essence of the show. Just like every rock song has a hook that sucks you in, every rock fan has a moment, whether it's a song, an album, a band, or performance, that hooked them on rock and roll. What was it for you?
Without a doubt, it's 1977. I am adopted and getting my first Christmas, my first real traditional Christmas, as you would. First gift I got opened was Kiss Alive 2. And you can imagine opening that gatefold, seeing that photo, dropping the needle on Detroit Rock City, and that was that's what got me. So from that day on, it's been crazy time ever since.
I am a fan of Alive 2 more than Alive. I like Alive, but because I heard Alive 2 first, I'm always partial to that album.
That's me. It's exactly the same people ever go, what about Alive? I mean, yeah, Alive was cool, but that's not the one that I dropped first that really hooked me to the band. And you know, and I wore those songs out. And for me, exactly the same way. Love Alive. Alive 2 is that's my religious experience in music, if you would.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's got 5 studio tracks, Larger Than Life, that I love. And of course, Rocket Ride. I mean, that's like the big song off of that record.
Without a doubt. I love that entire, everything about from the drum solo to you can hear the bombs in the background to all of it. And people can say what they want to about it being recorded in the studio. I'm just going to pretend it's 77 and that's Cobalt Hall.
My only complaint about that album is that Mr. Speed from Rock and Roll Over does not appear on it.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. Mr. Speed is one. There's what's the Gene song off of Rock and Roll Over? God, I can't remember.
Ladies Room?
Pardon?
Ladies Room that appears on the album? Or Love 'Em Leave 'Em?
No, not on the album that I wish that was,
Yeah. No, it's that's the only disappointing thing I have because I love that song. So where'd it go from there? From Kiss Alive 2? What was your journey into rock music in singing and performing?
Yeah, well, of course, I listen to Kiss Alive 2. I want to be a rock star. I want to do that whole thing. Hey, Dad, can I be a drummer? Well, when you grow up in a small little 3-bedroom house in rural Virginia, drums are not optimal for close quarters, if you would. So that didn't work out. And then I'm like, okay, well, what about guitar? Well, that didn't work out either. Again, way too loud, for such a small little place that we were in. And they said, hey, how come you just, why don't you just sing? Well, singing was probably the worst thing they could have picked because here I am screaming, old Kiss tunes as loud as I can in my bedroom. So they probably would have been better off me being a drummer or a guitar player. But that's really where it started. So, I mean, I was hooked at that point. It was, be a rock star or bust. Well, that's a cool idea until you get to be about 21, 22. The entire world changes when Nirvana shows up, and I'm going, clearly this isn't going to work out for me the way that I thought that it would. Maybe I should go to school. And so, but we're going to keep playing at the same time, keep writing, keep playing in bands, but I probably need to start a career. So, did that, did the whole career thing, still doing it, wife, kids, that whole thing, but still kept playing music and right on with it. So some guys, quote unquote, make it at 21. Other guys, quote unquote, get a break at 50. And that happened to be me.
So, obviously, 21 years old and Nirvana comes out and they're huge all over. How did that affect your journey? Did you still stay on the path? Were you able to incorporate other things into your music in terms of your influences, your style of playing, your music writing, your lyrics?
Yeah, at the time you fight that kind of change. You know what I mean? You're so into what's happening. You're just Van Halen, it's Kiss, it's Guns N' Roses, and your world is that particular genre, and you're loving everything about it. And then next thing you know, some guys in flannel and sneakers show up, and it changes your world. And of course, some people embraced it, thought it was great. Other people hated it, and I have to say, at first I avoided it, hoping that it would go away. Well, clearly it didn't. It's just like any other music. It evolves. And if you're going to be successful in music, you probably should evolve too. So it took a little bit of maturity, and maybe that's why I'm just now, getting to the point where I'm having conversations with folks like you, because it took a little while for me to adapt and basically, be relevant and current and modern and that kind of thing. So.
music's all about timing too. You know, what you don't like years ago, decades ago, you may hear it now. And because you've experienced life and you've, been able to mature, you mentioned maturity too, as well. It sounds different, and
it does. And you have appreciation for those guys now that, when I'm 50 and I listen to, Soundgarden or Pearl Jam or even Nirvana and that kind of thing, bands that, artificially put my hands up against, without even really giving it a chance. You get a certain maturity and age to you, and then you go back and listen to it and you're going, this was brilliant. I mean, it was relevant then. There's some music that came before it was relevant, music after it that's relevant, and you start to realize good music is good music. It doesn't matter what label they want to put on you. So, and it's really, and whether you believe it or not, you get some influence from these things. So, and I certainly did.
I don't know how many times it's happened to me where I have brushed off a song by a band, and a few years later, I'm in a club getting ready to watch a show, and the PA's playing the song, and that song that I resisted for so long is played over the PA, and for whatever reason, it just hits me in the right moment. I'm like, this is a really good song. Like, why haven't I ever listened to this? Like, this is a really good tune, and it's just, it's an atmosphere or whatever,
Yeah, and you rediscover some stuff you missed, and you're like, man, how did I miss this? It's crazy, and then it's kind of like Christmas all over again. So, it's a good song is a good song, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I just, over the last few years, I've connected with Thin Lizzy, who I always resisted when I was younger, and I was never really into him. And now it's like, man, it's like Christmas all over. I get to enjoy this band that's got this great catalog of music that's just totally awesome.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah, I'm exactly the same.
So the band is the CEO, and the debut album comes out later this month, and you are the lead singer. And explain where you guys came from. Explain how you guys developed.
Well, it's funny. You hear a lot of these guys talk about, we grew up together, or we're friends, or we came together, via this or via that. The guys in this band, I literally played in and around Atlanta with for years. I mean, we were in cover bands together. I mean, we had an Ozzy Osbourne tribute band that actually did really well, throughout the country. And it was just a case of, all right, we play together, we like each other, we're buddies, and even though we span a couple different generations, I've got two guys in the bands that are in their 20s. One guy's in his 30s, of course, Vince and myself are, in our early 50s. So, it was really just a bunch of guys that liked each other, that respected each other's music abilities, that kind of came together and found out that, we're more alike than we are different. And, creating this musical gumbo, if you would, actually works. It's cool. You know what I mean? What Vince brings to the band and what Chase brings to the band and Joe brings to the band. I mean, it all just kind of creates this, I wouldn't say unique as much as it is. It's just us. It sounds like us. So it's cool.
How did you guys find each other?
Well, like I said, just like any other music scene, Atlanta's a big town, the Southeast is a big area, but, it really isn't when it comes to music. You get to know these folks in different bands, and then you start working together, and someone suggests it's this person or that person. And of course, you can't live in the Southeast and not be a Sevendust fan. So everyone knows Vince, and, they call him the boss for a reason. So, he was able to help us out when we were first getting started, and, come to find out he liked it so much. He says, we were like, hey, why don't you just come be our bass player, tongue in cheek type thing. And he said, sure. And, that's like hitting a grand slam in the bottom of the ninth. And you're like, okay, awesome. And that's really just kind of how that worked. We've known each other for a long time. They're really good friends and even better musicians. So it just works.
How was the collaborative process? I mean, this is a new band. You guys are all seasoned musicians. How did that work? Did you bring most of the material in that you had written, or how did all that come together?
It's funny because, these guys, like I said, they truly are friends. So, they would get together and just start writing songs. So, again, you've got a 30-year-old drummer who's been influenced by, Pantera and Periphery, hanging out with, the guitar player who's, is in his early 20s, who's working with a singer in his 50s. And it just kind of, they're starting to write music, and they would shoot me ideas, and whatever just kind of fit and just flowed well. We went down to the studio with probably 20 songs that we showed our producer Elvis, and he went through and he picked out the ones that he liked. And that's really kind of how this album was done. We had no problem writing songs and writing music. In fact, we've got a ton already written for the second album. It's just a matter of whittling them down into something that's consistent.
Are you the primary lyric writer of the band?
Yeah, I'm the only. I write all the lyrics and vocal melodies and that kind of thing, and they write the music. So,
when you're writing lyrics, where do you find your inspiration? Is it personal experience? Is it observation? How do you tap into that?
Yeah, no, it's definitely personal experience. I mean, it's stuff that I know about, I've experienced, that I see, things that I think and feel. I wouldn't. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to write, Hall of the Mountain King. While it's a cool song, I'm not that creative. So it's really just down to, things that are going on in the world, in my life, my visions, how I interpret things, or, there's relationships and friendships and that kind of thing. So yeah, definitely more from my experience and vantage point.
Because it's a tough thing to do when you're writing about personal experiences, right? Because not all experiences are great. There's good experiences, there's bad, there's sad, there's happy. And you've got to tap into that and relive those experiences. And there's a sense of vulnerability when you are. How do you overcome that stuff? Is it a therapeutic process for you? Is it, something that you use to help reflect on things?
Yeah, without a doubt. A lot of times you'll listen to an album or a song, and it's really a good window or insight into someone's life or psyche at that period of time. When we first started writing the record, there were certain things going on in my life, and I can hear those songs, hear that in the lyrics of the songs. And then, things change, the pandemic comes and the world is a little different, or, you leave one bad relationship and end up with a great one, which is what happened to me. And, you can hear that in the song. So it is very therapeutic. My sister, committed suicide during the middle of the writing process. So there's a song on there about that. And that was probably the toughest one to write. But again, it was it was an ode in some way to her, and, obviously top of mind, and it just seemed to work. And so, those are the kind of things that you draw from. So to your point, absolutely therapeutic. And, honestly, I can't think of any other way that I could. It just wouldn't be real if I wasn't pulling from things that I actually knew, experienced, or believed.
Is there anything that you've experienced that it's too difficult to write about? It's too, or maybe your mind is not ready to go through that process?
For the most part, writing a song about my sister passing away was tough, but we were able to, I was able to pull that out and get that done. There's some, obviously, growing up in foster homes and that kind of thing, it's always a little sensitive subject, but, at my age, you've dealt with most of that kind of stuff. And writing about it and writing about your experience in the world is actually, at this point, once you kind of work through that stuff, it's, it's therapeutic and almost an opportunity to help maybe some other people that are going through it themselves and say, hey, we've been there, we've done that, you're going to be great, you're going to be all right. So.
Yeah, I've always wondered how that process is for people, because I've asked that question to a few guests that have been on the show about their writing process and where they find that inspiration and how they tap into that stuff, because it's a pretty vulnerable moment. And then, once you write it and you record it, it's no longer yours. It's now the audience to determine how they connect with it and how they react to it. It's such a unique process that I don't think there's anything else like it in art or in anything, that you're writing lyrics, you're singing about something that connects with you, but the ultimate interpretation is what the fan thinks.
You're right, and that's such great insight because it's absolutely true. You know, you listen to a song like Redemption or some of these other ones, and you're like, okay, what does it mean to you? I mean, how does it speak to you? I mean, some things are, obvious, and other things are a little more, okay. However you take this and whatever you feel about it makes it legit, in my opinion, whether it was my frame of mind at the time when writing it or not. So I enjoy, not only hearing what you liked and what you didn't like, but the why. Why did you like this? What about it? Is it just the music? Is it the hook? Is it the lyrics? Did that mean something to you? What is it the mood of the music? That kind of thing. So I'm always really kind of curious, on the flip side of that. It was like, okay, well, what made you like this? What about spoke to you? So it goes both ways.
The album really kind of knocks you on your ass with the first song, Twin Flame, which I had to play that song like 4 or 5 times before I continued on to the rest of the record, because it's just a phenomenal way to open up the record. It goes into Redemption a couple songs later, which is the first single. One of the things that I noticed about this album that I always look for, like initially, every time I listen to something, is how something sounds sonically. And the mix and the production of this album is just A+. It's incredible.
Yeah, without a doubt. Obviously, working with Elvis Basquet, I mean, is like, hitting a grand slam in the bottom of the ninth. I mean, being able to work with him, and the guy's just got the #1 single out with Wolfgang Van Halen, and the #1 rock album with Miles Kennedy and Alter Bridge and those guys. So, I mean, his trophy case speaks for itself. But on top of all of that, and not only his relevancy in modern rock and roll today, the guy is extremely talented and couldn't be cooler. I mean, you think about, the week before we came in, Slash was in the studio, and then Miles Kennedy was behind the same microphone that I'm singing by. That's very intimidating, especially for a, quote unquote new rock act, somebody he's never heard before. Here are these, guys from Georgia. Of course, Vince has given us the nod of approval, but he's never heard us play a lick other than some demos. And you walk in the studio and anticipating, maybe he won't treat us the same, or, maybe we've got to really earn our stripes, that kind of thing. He couldn't have been any cooler to us. I mean, great guy. He saw the song before we saw the song, put it that way. In that, we're down there, we're writing, we think this is cool, and, we have a vision, and he sees the whole thing before we're even done with it. That is the talent of the record, in my opinion, is kind of like having that fifth Beatle, if you would. Somebody that really just kind of puts it all together and makes it stick. And, he is worth his weight in gold.
Yeah, you could tell. I mean, it's just a powerful album, sonically, lyrically, musically. Is this what you envisioned, what you guys were going to sound like when you hear a song in your head and there's, you got the demo stage and you still haven't really fulfilled what you envision, what you hear? Is this what you expected?
It is, in that, when you start these things, you really don't have a formula, if you would. It's just, like I said, just 5 guys in a room writing music, and, you hit on things that you like, and hopefully there's enough of it there together that it sounds consistent. But typically, once you get towards the end of the writing process and you start working on album 2, you've got a pretty good idea of not only what your formula is, but what works well for you. It's like, hey, this is who we are. This works well for us. We enjoy, writing and playing this kind of music, and we think that we can grow that. So there's some stuff on the album that we're going, okay, we're trying this out. This is more of a punchy, groovy kind of swing feel to it. And then, there's other ones like Top of the Track, Twin Flames, which is more of a, a straight headbanger, So it's kind of like, what works, what might not work, and what can we do better next time around? That's really kind of our attitude. So very pleased with this one, and looking forward to, kind of building on that on the next.
The band is the CEO. The album is Redemption. It's on Rat Pack Records, out June 25th. The guest is vocalist Mack Mullins. having this record done and completed, and then the pandemic hits and basically skews everyone's plans to get out and play live or promote the album. How was it for you to sit on something that you knew was really good to only release it over, a year and 14 months, 16 months later?
Yeah, it was tough because, obviously, you want to share it with people and you want them to hear it, but, obviously you can't, so you got to sit on it and then, you are excited about it. And then like any other musician, okay, that's cool. What's next? So our mindset has kind of moved on to the next one. And then they give you the drop date, and then you've got to go back and revisit this one and go, oh yeah, this is cool. I'm excited about this, and it's like, yeah, that's a great song. That was cool. I remember this, blah, blah, blah. And you would think, after 14, 16 months that you would still be fresh, but, we're really kind of getting to listen and look at it through fresh eyes ourselves, along with the audience. And, it's exciting. It's cool.
It's like, like we just talked about, you revisit something after it's been done or after you already heard it, and it sounds different, right? You have a different perspective on what you did. And then also to experience all the things that we went through last year, whether it was the pandemic, whether it was the protests, whatever it was a toxic year all around. To write music after that, and when you have this album already done, that's got to be interesting, especially for a new band.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it definitely gives you, a different perspective. It's like, what's really important, what's, obviously what's going on in the world and how did it affect you? How did it affect the entire, group and what it is that we're doing. So, it's much like anything else in life. We gain an experience that is going to shape the rest of our lives. And it can't help but parlay into what it is that we're writing and playing.
When you think of where the direction the band is going, obviously Sevendust has some commitments and, you guys will be touring and supporting the album. What can fans expect from you guys once you start playing live?
Well, obviously the Sevendust guys are going to be out on the road probably 3 months or so. So once they get back, then, we'll be able to hit the road and as you would expect, a support act for, a similar type act. So, obviously I come from the KISS school of things. So, I would have a giant stage show if we could, but again, obviously as an opener, you get 45 minutes to go out there and kick their teeth in and get them nice and warmed up for the band behind you. So, we're going to go out and give as much as we possibly can in the shortest period of time as they will certainly allow us to do. So, the energy is there, the excitement is there, and I bet you're going to get your money's worth. That's my attitude.
And as far as the album goes and recording the album, we talked about influences in the beginning. What influences did you guys draw from for this album?
Well, speaking for myself personally, obviously, I grew up on that, the KISS, the Van Halen, Ted Nugent. I got a lot of old 70s, early 80s funk. I mean, big Rick James fan. So I kind of come from that groovy kind of swinging type background, but I got other guys in the band that are, like I said, are Pantera guys, or more of the modern, more current heavy metal. So it's just, I think for us, it's blending, the old school with a lot of new school, and if those two work together, then we got ourselves a song. So that's kind of my attitude.
How do you balance that too? Because a lot of bands fall into the trap of, sounding too much like another act, or, kind of having no direction with where their music is going. Was that something that was really on your minds when you're making this record is, hey, let's try to blend these two elements or all these worlds together to really make it work? What was that process like?
Yeah, I think a lot of it really has to do with, the fact that they're writing music and I'm writing, lyrics and melody over top of it. And then we're working with a guy like Elvis. It's got to have certain elements to it that, A, are consistent, and B, that work well together. it's kind of hard to, have the music of Pantera when you don't sing like Pantera, so it's kind of like, does it work or does it not? It's like, well, how do we make it work? So the formula for us is like, hey, does it have those underlying elements that, give me space to write? And if it does, great, let's record it and see if it's any good. And if it doesn't, I'll tell you guys and say, hey, this is a great song, but it's not a CEO song, And one of the, cool little stories, if you've got time, is a song like Blackheart, which was really written for Nashville. It was really written for the country music guys. And they presented it to me as just music, and they actually had some lyrics written. And I'm like, I really like the music. I don't like the lyrics. Do you mind if I change them? And they're like, no, do whatever you want to do with it. So there's actually a version out there that's completely different in Nashville than this version that's obviously with us. So you probably wouldn't know it because it's changed that much, but it's cool how it could go either way.
That's interesting how a song can evolve into something that, is different than what you intended it for, or that you maybe just have a different feel for it, but it works for both types of genres.
Yeah. And that's the really cool part about it. Cause like I said, I kind of just, I said, nah, it's a cool song. Thanks, but no thanks. But then, Elvis heard it and he goes, I think we got something here. I think we can make something out of this. And they literally handed it back to me the night before we were supposed to record it. And they said, here, go write it. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I listened to what they sent over from that night's sessions, wrote the lyrics and the melody out, went in the next morning and got what you hear today. So it worked. So.
Well, Mack, I appreciate you doing this. I'm really excited about the album. It sounds great, and I think fans are going to love it, and people are going to really definitely connect with it.
Well, I certainly appreciate obviously you guys having us, and giving it a listen, and obviously, being a new act out there. Certainly appreciate the support. Love to hear the feedback, what you guys think and what we can do better. So certainly appreciate it.
The band is The CEO. The album is Redemption, out June 25th on Rat Pack Records. Go out and buy it. Buy the physical copy. They got a bunch of packages on Rat Pack Records that are autographed. They got like shirts with it or whatever, merch with it, and that's the way to go. Don't stream, buy that physical copy. Have that connection with you, I always say, and you'll enjoy it even more. But I'd like to thank Mack Mullins, the vocalist from The CEO. I'm Jay Scott. Please subscribe to us wherever you podcast. Follow us on Twitter. Like us on Facebook. We will talk again soon. Thank you.